Please welcome reproductive rights advocate Amanda Zarowski.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Zarowski, and I live in Austin, Texas with my husband, Josh. Texas has one of the cruelest abortion bans in the country, the result of which nearly cost me my life in 2022. Josh and I were expecting our first baby, who we desperately wanted, and worked for over a year with the help of fertility treatments to conceive. Unfortunately, at 18 weeks, I suffered complications and we learned we were going to lose our baby girl. While standard healthcare protocol would include an abortion, this was post-Roe, Texas, so ending a non-viable pregnancy is considered an illegal abortion. I had to wait until I met one of the rare medical exceptions in Texas, life of the mother. For 3 days, I waited to get sick enough to deserve care. I went into septic shock twice and permanently lost the full functionality of my reproductive organs. What happened to me was inhumane and cruel, so to protect my fellow Texans, fellow Americans, I started speaking out right away. One of my first allies in my crusade was Vice President Harris. She told my story on what would have been the 50th anniversary of Roe v. Wade in January of 2023. Through it all, Vice President Harris has been a fierce fighter for reproductive freedoms, and she's also been an incredibly inspiring and caring friend. She is a warrior in defending reproductive rights, and I am so excited to hear from her today. But before we do, I'd first like to introduce another amazing voice in this fight. She's a New York Times #1 best-selling author, TV personality, and the founder of Cravings. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chrissy Teigen.
You want to come up? No, not yet. Maybe at the end.
And now, it is my honor to introduce the first woman to be elected Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
This is incredible and a very foreign atmosphere for me. This is wild. You said it would be casual. I looked out there and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. So thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I feel like I've been to the White House so many times now for parties and things, so this is quite a different circumstance.
Yeah.
It is such an honor to be here and to see you and to see so many familiar faces out in this crowd. Thank you for coming. So many of you are such an inspiration to me personally. I've learned so much from so many of you, and I am just one person up here kind of amplifying what you guys do on a daily basis. So thank you so much for being here. Amanda, thank you. Where'd she go for that introduction? Thank you so much. Very kind. I'm also thrilled to have my family here with me today. Luna, Miles, Esty, Ren. Happy birthday, Ren. John is here as well. You guys are going to be hearing from them from the front row, I'm sure. But actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about when I first met you was actually in Los Angeles in my bedroom. I think was your green room when you were Senator Kamala Harris. And it was the days that John and I thought that we would be, I was pregnant with Luna, who's now 8. And this was like kind of a side area to our bedroom, and we actually had this belief that we would want to sleep with the baby. We had this crazy idea. So I just remember seeing you next to the crib and then next to our bed, and I mean, it's just wild to see how many years have passed and how our family has really grown. And I just feel very lucky to be here, and I feel lucky that they get to see me up here speaking to you. And it's so nice to be up here speaking to a woman about this fight. Yeah. So let's get right into this. It's crazy to think it's been 2 years since the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, which obviously overturned Roe versus Wade. What can you talk about regarding the impact of that and how we ended up here?
So let me start by saying thank you, Chrissy. Many of us have watched your incredible career, and in particular, the way you have always so courageously used your voice. And for you to be on this stage at this moment at the White House, having this conversation and being willing to talk about your personal experiences, as I told you earlier, is going to impact people and women that you may never meet, people who may never know any of our names. But because of the courage of people like Amanda and Chrissy and so many others who have come forward to tell their stories, this is about the heroes of a movement right now that is a movement about empowering people and also reminding them they are not alone. So I thank everyone for being here, and I want to thank you in particular for having the courage always to talk about important issues in such a meaningful way. So can we please applaud Chris? I also want to thank John for being here, and my husband, the first second gentleman of the United States, for being here. I think they are both emphasizing that this is an issue that impacts all people in our country, regardless of your gender, and that is very important to always emphasize. So with that, where are we? Today we are almost at the 2-year mark. I'm not going to call it an anniversary.
It's a sad anniversary, we say.
That's good, right? Of the day that the highest court in our land took a constitutional right that had been recognized from the people of America, from the women of America. The court of Thurgood Marshall and RBG, who took a fundamental freedom, which is the freedom of people to make decisions about their own bodies, the freedom that people rightly should have to make decisions that I like to call the decisions that are about heart and home. And thereafter, in our country, we have seen states propose and pass laws like the ones that Amanda had to go through that would criminalize healthcare providers. In Texas, providing for prison up to life for a healthcare provider. We have doctors here, we have physicians here, that punish women, laws that make no exception even for rape or incest. Many of the people here know I started my career as a prosecutor. What you may not know is one of the reasons why. Well, when I was in high school, I learned that my best friend was being molested by her stepfather. And I said to her, you've got to come stay with us. I called my mother. My mother said, of course she does, and she did. And I made a decision then at a very young age that I wanted to do the work that was about protecting women and children from violence. So I raised that to say that these laws that make no exception even for rape or incest, imagine what these extremists are suggesting, which is that someone who has survived a violation to their body has no right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That's immoral. And what we have seen in terms of the story of Amanda and so many others being denied critical health care at a critical moment where they needed it, mostly because the physicians, the healthcare providers, were afraid they might go to jail for doing the job, the oath they took, which is to provide care and prevent harm. And so I think of this issue in two ways in particular. One, it is about the fact that our highest court took a fundamental freedom and the notion of it all, that such a basic right would be taken. And the second equally important part of it is, and it is not just that it then offends some intellectual or conceptual or academic notion. The harm, the actual harm that has occurred to real people every day since that decision came down is immeasurable. And what also has happened in this environment, a subtext which is to judge women, to make people feel as though they should be embarrassed about something they've done, to really go back to some very archaic notions of the fact that women should somehow be ashamed of their sexuality. Like, understand the various subtexts that are at play in this issue. And what we must all do then to stand and say we are not going to allow this to happen, and what the court took, Congress can put back in place, and elections matter on this issue as much as anything.
Yes. I recently had the chance to spend a day at Feminist Women's Health Center in Atlanta. And, you know, it really was such a beautiful, incredible experience. I learned from some of the best people that I've actually gotten to ever meet. They're here today, Dr. Zoe and Kwajalein Jackson. Thank you so much for being here. It was such an emotional, incredible experience to see what you guys do. And I think, you know, one of the things that people may not know is that it's not just people living in states with abortion bans who are at risk. We've seen calls for a national abortion ban, a push to restrict access to contraception and IVF, and maybe other rights beyond reproductive rights are at risk as well. So it's so important that everyone, regardless of where we live, that everybody remains vigilant and holds the line. I know you've spoken about these attacks on our freedoms at length. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So again, let's take a look at how we got here. Because there is something that happened before the court acted, which is that the previous president of the United States hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did as he intended. And let me tell you, I was in the United States Senate, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and questioned a couple of these folks. And the intention and where this was going to head was very clear at that time. And in rendering that decision, the Dobbs decision, taking away this fundamental right, one of those justices who is on the Supreme Court and has been for a while, Clarence Thomas, said the quiet part out loud. He started talking about contraception. He started talking about same-sex marriage, Obergefell. And I think it's really important that we understand the intersectionality between freedoms. You know, when the Dobbs decision came down, so I'm going to confess, I love Venn diagrams. You know, those 3, if you're ever like in a moment of conflict, pull out a Venn diagram.
I'll do that with John.
Help you sort things out, right? And so I asked my team, show me from which states we're seeing attacks on reproductive freedom, which states we're seeing attacks on access to the ballot, where we're seeing attacks from on LGBTQ rights. And you all would not be shocked or surprised to know there was a huge intersection. These freedoms are intertwined. And I say that for a number of reasons, including to see the moment of opportunity in the crisis, which is to renew our commitment to coalition building, to reminding ourselves that this movement, we should be bringing together those folks who've been fighting forever for voting rights and for the passage of the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill. Let's bring together all the folks that have been fighting forever for LGBTQ rights and the Equality Act. Let's bring everyone together who for years have been fighting for maternal health care, for reproductive health care and rights. And all of these movements also being about a very essential point, which is about the dignity of all people, not to mention the equality of all people. But we got to see how we got here and understand, again, elections matter, but also understand what is afoot in terms of what I consider to be an intentional, full-on attack in the last few years against hard-won, hard-fought freedoms and rights. Think about that. In a state like Georgia, where they passed a law that makes it illegal to give people food and water for standing in line to vote. The hypocrisy abounds. What happened to love thy neighbor? Think about a state like Florida. Don't say gay. Let me tell you, I was proud to be among the first electeds in the country to perform same-sex marriages on Valentine's weekend in 2004. So we just celebrated that 20th anniversary. And I think about some young teachers in Florida who are in their 20s who are afraid to put up a photograph of themselves and their partner for fear they could lose their job. And what is their job? To do God's work, to teach other people's children. And Lord knows we don't pay them enough as it is. See the intersections. Attacks on, book bans. Book bans. The freedom to learn America's full history. So in these moments, we should also see the intersections and in that way reinforce our commitment to coalition building and remind ourselves we are not alone. And the best way to deal with a lot of this stuff is to build community, right?
That's beautiful. And, in saying that people are not alone, I think what's really important with reproductive rights and reproductive justice in this whole topic is being able to be storytellers.
Yeah,
That's right. I think more than people come up to us all the time on a daily basis, and it's really never about, I made this recipe from your book, or I love this song of John's.
although I do love your book.
Thank you. And I always look over at John because I know exactly what they're going to say when they start to approach us. And it's usually an incredible story of them losing a baby they wanted so badly, having maybe suffered miscarriages, maybe having that realization like I had that they did have an abortion. People that go through the IVF process, people that had postpartum depression like me. So I've always tried to be a storyteller online, which is why this is such a different forum for me. But I think I've appreciated that the most, that people feel that connection and that I'm able to share those things. For those of you that don't know, was it 2020? 2020, it's all a blur a bit. I finally got naturally pregnant. So all these little beautiful babies that are here in this front row today came about by IVF. But I found myself pregnant naturally for the first time. I didn't think it could happen for me, so we were very excited. We learned that we were having a baby boy, and I started having complications pretty early on, but thought that maybe I could get stronger, my placenta could grow stronger. I ended up having a placental abruption and was bleeding out essentially, but felt no pain. It was an odd, unique experience because I always imagined if you were losing a baby, you would feel some sort of cramping or pain. And I just remember going to the hospital and really feeling like things were gonna be okay. I have videos from that day that if I'm so inclined to ever go look back at, I don't choose to yet. But there was so much hope for it. We didn't really feel like anything was gonna go wrong, but things turned bad very quickly. I needed blood transfusion after blood transfusion. I remember feeling so lucky that I had the care that I had and the ability to make decisions with my doctor. We ended up, having an abortion. And it's so weird to say because I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I didn't realize that until the Dobbs decision, when John and I were talking about it in bed one day. And I was talking about it from a place of, I feel so bad for people, for other people, for them, that anyone's ever had to go through that, and they're not able to make a choice about their own body. And he was like, well, you had an abortion? And I was like, what? I had no idea. That language wasn't used in the room that I was in. It was never said by my doctor. It was never said by anyone around me. So I just assumed that I had miscarried. I didn't even realize, and I honestly felt so ignorant for not having known that for so many years, that I didn't know what was happening to my own body. But I think that word is so scary to people. It's so taboo to talk about. And so I think by you speaking out about it, by being here and all of us speaking out about it, and knowing that millions of women around the world make this decision for themselves, and hearing stories from your clinic, hearing that so many women come in there, and it's not a place of sadness all the time. It's not a place where people are feeling at their darkest points or anything like the world wants you to think. Some people go in there with so much hope and so much excitement because they know that they have a future. And maybe there are so many people like Amanda and I that wanted our baby so badly, and it's okay. What happened to us is okay, but we can't let this happen to other people. We cannot let people not have this choice. And so to see that so many people out there, and the stories that you shared at your clinic of people having so much hope and positivity and a new outlook on life, it doesn't have to be this place of darkness and scary. And the level of comfort I felt just being at your clinic was so incredible and so beautiful, and something that I actually wished for myself. I found it to be such a beautiful place. That it was just so, so special. So sharing all these stories and humanizing this taboo subject, I think, is really an important thing. Sorry. Okay, this next one, I can't tell if I love it or I hate it, but you were the first vice president in the you were the first vice president of the United States to visit an abortion clinic, traveling earlier this year to a Planned Parenthood in Minnesota. We'll say no president has, no vice president before Kamala, so it's incredible. Can you believe it? Like, I mean, of course you are, but I mean, it's been around for a long time, so.
But you know, I didn't realize, so when we planned to take the trip, I didn't really, you know, look, I didn't realize I'd be the first, but you know, what else is new? But the reason that I went is because part of, to your point, Chrissy, all of the residual and direct impacts of this still have yet to be learned and talked about. Like, it's just so profound in many ways that decision has impacted people. And it includes that healthcare clinics have had to close, especially in the states with abortion bans, which I call Trump abortion bans, by the way, because no matter how much he wants to say, oh, leave it to the states,
girl. Say it.
Had he not intended to do what he actually did, these states would not have been able to pass these laws. So be very clear, these are Trump abortion bans. But I went to the clinic to highlight what these clinics do. And there are a number of points that you said it so beautifully. First of all, these clinics are in the community, run by people who understand who walks through the door. And they do it in a way that is loving. Mm-hmm. They do it in a way that creates a safe place for people to go. They do it in a way that gives the people who walk in that door dignity and grace. And as we know, I mean, I've been working forever on maternal mortality and the disparities, especially when you talk about black maternal mortality, the number of Native women who die, the number of rural women who die who shouldn't have to because of biases and inadequate resources going to certain communities. These clinics provide a safe place for people to go, to have these conversations that otherwise might be the subject of judgment or even ridicule. These clinics are the same ones that provide breast cancer screenings, that do pap smears. This is Pride Month. I was just talking with a number of gay men who were talking to me about, love that you went to the Planned Parenthood clinic. Why, I asked them. Because that's where I went to go get my HIV screening. And not be judged. It was a place in the community that provided reproductive care in every way for every gender. And so again, residual impact, when these places have to shut down, where are people gonna go? And the travesty of it is that it will result in all kinds of other health care consequences and harm, in addition to the obvious.
Yeah, the right loves to call it an abortion clinic, right? Because then it makes it seem so targeted and so evil. What I experienced there was nothing like that. The amount of not just physical care, but mental care.
Yeah.
Room
Yes,
to
right.
room to room, going in and knowing that you have privacy. You have somebody that's looking into your eyes. I started crying. I thought I was going to make it through the tour okay, but I started crying once I saw this beautiful mural of butterflies above the operating suite. And I took one look at it, and my eyes filled with tears. And I looked over at Dr. Zoe, and she looked me in the eye, and she said, "You could have had butterflies." And it stayed with me. It really stayed with me. And it stays with all those people that come through your clinic and clinics across America, to have that kind of care and that warmth. I didn't know what I was going to walk into, but I was so surprised and so amazed and so at peace. And all the women that come through that clinic deserve to have the same thing. So thank you. Oh my God, question 4 already. Here we go. We got 6 minutes. Okay. So obviously it's been such an honor to be with all of you here at the White House. I know we have so many advocates, patients, and providers in this room. I want to take a moment to recognize the incredible efforts of you all. I would like to give a shout out to some of the organizers and providers here with us today. Firstly, my loves. I keep looking over and I keep mentioning them, but my friends Dr. Zoe and Kwajalein from the Feminist Women's Health Center in Atlanta, the teams from Planned Parenthood, Reproductive Freedom for All, the Abortion Care Network, Physicians for Reproductive Health, and the American Medical Women's Association, just to name a few. I feel so new to this world. I've been a mom only for 8 years, and this world of reproductive justice is kind of new for me. So I look to you all to be able to help myself get out there, to be able to amplify your voices. So speaking of hope, I mean, let's end it on something positive, and you know, what gives you hope for the world, the road ahead?
You and everyone here. What gives me hope are our young leaders who, in the height of their reproductive years, saw this happen and they're not having it. What gives me hope is I know how we make a difference. I'm going to give you an example of a related topic that you've reminded me that should be talked about. So for years I've worked on the issue of maternal mortality. And when I became vice president then, one of the issues that I took a look at is, to your point, postpartum care. And I realized that for women on Medicaid, only 3 states, when I became vice president, only 3 states were extending Medicaid coverage for postpartum care for women from 2 months to 12 months. Only 3 states. So I'm not above shaming people. And so I called out all the other states and basically said, you need to do this. Now 46 states have extended postpartum care to a full year. And I say that as but one example of so many that we can tell of how our work and our activism and using your voice so courageously makes a difference. And that always should give us a sense of hope and a sense of knowledge of our power. There's so much about this that really has been intended to take power, and we should never let anybody take our power, including our power in knowing what we are capable of and how we can empower others. You know, there's this perverse thing that I think has happened over the last several years in our country, which is to suggest that the measure of the sign of one's power is based on who you beat down. No. The real measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. The real strength of the character of a leader is based on someone who has some level of concern and consideration and care for the well-being of other people and then takes it upon themselves to do something about it. And I'm looking at an audience full of people who are just those leaders. And that gives me hope. We're not lying down on this one. We are not going to passively watch this happen. We are in the midst of a movement. A movement that was started, back in the day with those who fought for Roe v. Wade, and we are the ones who have now been handed the baton in this movement to move it forward. I'll end with, I always paraphrase this saying from Coretta Scott King. She famously said, the fight for civil rights, which of course is the fight for equality and dignity and justice. And she said, the fight for civil rights must be fought and won with each generation. I think there were 2 points there. One, it is the nature of these fights that whatever gains we make, they will not be permanent unless we are vigilant. The second point then being, okay, got it. That's the nature of it. Won't be permanent unless we're vigilant. That's the nature of it. Got it. So this is not a time to despair. We got it. So this is a time not to throw up our hands. It's time to roll up our sleeves. And that's why we're all here together. When you know what you stand for, you know what to fight for. We know what to fight for, and we're really good at fighting for the good stuff. That's what gives me hope.
The fire has definitely been lit. People
Right?
are excited and ready to fight this together. Everyone in this room.
That's right.
For me, I've drawn so much hope and inspiration from all the brave, amazing, dedicated providers that I've had the privilege to meet. And I've been so inspired by women who are stepping forward to share their own experiences. Over 1 million women sought abortion care in 2023. Each one of them have their own stories, their own journeys of bravery, and they give me hope. The community, from providers to abortion funds, making flight guides for first-time travelers. I learned from ARC Southeast so much of the work that goes into them working on phone lines, booking Ubers, booking Uber Eats, booking Postmates, booking hotels to make sure people can get to the care that they need. Providing donations to those abortion funds are crucial as well. I just learned such an incredible amount from you guys, and I'm so blessed to honestly know you. The conversations I've had with women all across the country have helped me understand in a much deeper way how important it is for every woman to have access to this kind of life-saving reproductive health care that I had. We have to fight for women in places like Honduras and Nicaragua and the Dominican Republic, where abortion is actually prohibited. We have to fight for women in El Salvador who are jailed for experiencing a miscarriage. And we have to fight for women in Gaza, where tens of thousands of women who need basic reproductive health care cannot get it, and pregnant women are being starved, displaced, and forced to endure unbearable stress and trauma. Sorry. The consequences of which will be felt for generations to come. We fight for all of them too. We fight for ourselves here, but globally, we fight for them too. Madam Vice President, I love saying that. I love saying Madam Vice President. Thank you so much for this today, and thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much. And Luna, my girl, I hope that you see all the incredible people, mainly women, in this room. And I hope that when you grow up, you want to fight for justice in the way that we do, unapologetically, without fear, and know that your body is your own and nobody can take that away from you, okay? I love you.
That's good. And everyone here, again, just know the power of your voice. We have so many influential people here. Let's just keep the drumbeat on this, okay? Let's keep the drumbeat on this. It is so important that we remind people of their power, including the power of their vote. Thank you all.